You know, it's the illusion. You know, it's become almost a knee-jerk reaction. Disease, vaccine. In fact, all these movies that you see over the last 20 years, some contagion comes into our society. Their first answer is vaccines, vaccines. You know, it's kind of the ultimate brilliance of marketing by the pharmaceutical industry to get us thinking that vaccines are the answer. Now, this is the same marketing that went on 50 years ago with antibiotics. We thought that antibiotics would be the answer to all bacterial infection. And what we found is the abuse of antibiotics, giving it just almost for colds and just for no reasons, has now developed strains that antibiotics don't work. And so all of a sudden we are losing the battle with infection, and people are dying from infection that most probably never would have died if we only gave antibiotics, to the rare exception. And even the American Academy of Pediatrics, or I like to call them the American Academy of Pharmaceuticals, you know, they said for children, the only time you should give antibiotics for pneumonia if it's life-threatening. I couldn't believe that they made that statement a few years ago, because we know that pediatricians hand out antibiotics like water, and they don't do it in only life-threatening situations.
And there they go again, the state playing God, assuming they know so much about life. It's just, it's comparable to when they discovered DNA and assumed 96% of it was junk. That they would know all the ins and outs of the system. You've got the probiotic systems and the gut flora that's proven so important in conjunction with vaccine studies and a whole lot more. I mean, let's go back to Benjamin Rush, who warned that if they didn't put medical freedom in the Constitution, we would have medical tyranny.
And that's what's coming now with Obamacare, you know, exactly that. I mean, it's just, I find it incredulous that anyone would vote on a 1,100-page bill without reading it. I mean, I find this just unconscionable. You know, every single person who voted for something like that, I don't care what, should be thrown out. I mean, end of story. You know, I can't believe it. You know, and that's become, you know, there's only one time in history that this happened, where someone accepted something before they read it, and that was when the Jews were at Mount Sinai, and the legend goes that God offered the Torah to many nations, and they said, we kind of like to see what's in it before we decide to accept it. And when he came to Moses, and Moses was a sharp guy, he said, no, we will agree to it, then we'll read what's in it. And so I suppose if you're doing something like that, it's worthwhile, you know, but short of that, I can't see the value to it.
Yeah, but now it's almost commonplace. Similar things happen with Patriot Acts 1 and 2, and I guess it's just a new thing in Congress not to read the text that you're passing into law.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, there's a lot of evil. I mean, I'd love to believe there's no evil in this world, but what happens in all these acts, they have little things hidden into the thousands of pages of these bills, which are, and in fact, in Obamacare, they actually have in there that if you don't vaccinate your child, the enforcement bodies, the Child and Family Services, can come to your house and forcibly take your children away. Frightening, absolutely frightening. You know, just the idea. I mean, this is America. I mean, what's wrong with these people? Why would they? They have no interest in protecting the people. You know, I mean, it's very, very sad. And I don't even know what the answer is, but as long as your voice is there and Alex's voice is there, you know, as long as our flames are flickering a little bit, we can become a roaring fire. And I think when it comes to the vaccine issue, we're becoming a roaring fire.
Well, Doctor, let's talk about that too, because you had the case in California where they at least attempted to go door to door and force vaccinate students they were calling truant. You've got the cases where pediatricians are refusing patients who won't vaccinate. You've got the case, we had the person on the show last week, I hope I didn't butcher her name, Patricia Finn. She was a lawyer representing parents who wouldn't vaccinate, and they tried to threaten her with taking away her bar agreements and tried to get her clients list.
Yeah, let me tell you something. I've spoken to her. I haven't spoken to her recently, but I'm very proud of her. I mean, she suffers from one thing: she's too attractive, and that really riles the left wing, because they believe that pretty women don't have a place in business, and she's fabulous. I mean, she refuses to give up the names of those families who owe her clients, and my God, that's one of the absolutely protected concepts of a lawyer. The lawyer client confidentiality, and it's just it's sinful what they're trying to do, and I will do anything I can to help her, but there's a growing number of lawyers like that, and that's what's so exciting, but I tell you, California is so fascinating. California is one of the 18 states that allows for a philosophical exemption. So the idea that they go door to door, if the families know the law, and all they have to do is hand that person, I would not let them get in the house. You just slide through the paper, through the opening of your door, your philosophical exemption. And I think that's kind of really, really important, in California right now. You don't even, and that's one that's, so that's why it's funny how they're going from, unfortunately, many of us don't know our rights, but even better, if you have someone knock on your door, you slide them a card and tell them that I'm going to have my attorney call you. That's I think the most important thing. And I've spoken to many of these, and I feel bad for the people enforcing it. They aren't bad people. It's just a job to them, And usually when I talk to them, that usually resolves it way before it gets past any type of issue.
Let me bring this up, shifting gears. You've got David Rockefeller, his family, among other things, really obsessed with the population issue over the past century. And he gave that speech in 1995, basically showing what you showed on the chart, that the decline in diseases has kind of contributed to the explosion of population, suggesting that it's almost a negligible thing, a negative thing, I mean, that so many people are living now that the birth rate, the infant mortality rate has dropped, and thus they are pushing vaccines worldwide, globally, with people like the Gates Foundation. How do we combat that agenda?
Well, let me tell you something. I tell you how we combat it. We just go back to Genesis right in the beginning, and the world wasn't big enough for Cain and Abel. The two of them couldn't survive together, and so I think we've had these problems of the world is too small for a long time. But on a more serious note, these are evil people. I don't mind. Tell them, every one of them, to exercise birth control and have no family. That's fine with me. I have no problem with that. I remember when I first got married 40 years ago. In the late 60s, there was this talk about ZPG, zero population growth. Thank you. And let me tell you, we're 40 years later. I don't. It's just incredible. It's frightening. I mean, these are the One World Alliance that they want you to. I tell you, I'll give you a perfect example. Like Buffett, who talks about rich people should pay more taxes. I don't see him paying more taxes. It's like they're telling you what you should do. It's no different. Get out of my life. Hey, get a life yourself. And I think that's. These are evil people, and how do we combat it? By just saying no. We're not going to do that. I think that's the way to combat it. I find it just kind of really interesting. I mean, they essentially want unwholesome life, and even now this whole issue of contraception, to be put into Obamacare and trying to force religious organization to mandate paying for contraception. I tell you why it's so phony. The cost of birth control pills, which I have never dispensed in my life, not because of religious reasons, because they're way too dangerous, $9 a month. $9 a month, and so the issue has nothing to do with that it's not available. In fact, all the Planned Parenthoods, which give me the creeps, the whole organization, you can get it free. If all you have to do is get a pink card or a green card. I don't know what the number is. And so this is just control. They want control, control, control. Very scary.
Yeah, it is. And you were talking about other ways that the government's losing credibility, cases that are being overturned, showing that prominent vaccine critics were proven right or at least not proven wrong. Let's get into a little bit of that and anything else you want to bring up.
Yeah, thank you. That's many of you, because I know he's been a guest many times with you and Alex. That's Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who wrote a paper in 1998 or 1999 on he saw a connection. He's a prominent pediatric gastroenterologist, which means he deals with issues of the intestines, in children. And he noticed a correlation between children who had regressive autism and those who had measles, mumps, and rubella virus in their intestine. And he surmised that maybe that was one of the causes. And he wrote a paper along with one of the most prominent world gastroenterologists, Dr. Walker. And they took Dr. Walker's license away after he had retired already. They took Dr. Wakefield's license away after hearings. And just a couple days ago, The Lancet, which published the article, retracted the article. And just a couple days ago, the courts in England overturned it and said it was pure bias. There was no evidence of any malfeasance done here. The families who they alleged, the committee, were upset by the research that was done. Every one of them came in the defense of these doctors. And so, it's kind of very interesting that, it was just an agenda by someone, maybe the drug industry, it's frightening, but it's exciting. This is a very big victory because Dr. Walker must be in his late 70s or early 80s, and he'd already retired. So it was more of for his reputation than anything else. But this bodes very well for Dr. Wakefield, who now has a suit against all the people who brought the suit against him to cause him to lose his license in England.
Doctor, it's so important that you're doing this seminar on how to allow people to understand better, to write their own exemptions, to write them from a point where it's going to stand. At the same time, we've got all the stuff going on in government, so much corruption. Even if you just started with the H1N1 vaccine and all the dangerous stuff they allowed to go in there with the false pandemic, at what point does it become a case of criminal negligence?
Oh, I think it's 100%. I think vaccines are criminal right now. Let's take the flu vaccine. There's 25 micrograms of mercury. Mercury is one of the if not the most toxic substance known. And it's the president's worried about doing a pipeline from Canada to bring gas here. He's worried about that, but he's not worried about injecting pregnant women, injecting children with a vaccine, the flu vaccine, which just doesn't work anyway. But even if it did work, it's got mercury, and every drop of mercury causes neurotoxicity. Just a matter of how much, and so we're dealing with scandalous type of stuff, and that's just one example because the amount of toxins in vaccines. But look, let's go another way. Let's assume they remove all the toxins from the vaccine. The vaccines themselves don't do any good, and so it's really, in my side, a losing argument. It's just a matter of time before all of the publics realize that the emperor is wearing no clothes.
And once you realize that, you can't go back. Tell us one more time about the webinar you're going to give, and that's in 2 days from now, correct?
Right. It's this Sunday night, March 11th, 7 to 8 o'clock. That's Central Time. And it's going to be how to write a legal waiver on vaccines. I gave a little bit of the opening right now, but I will go specifically into how to write it. And also, I will answer as many questions as I can. All you have to do is you'll type your questions. And to go there, just go to homefirst.com. That's my website, HOMEFIRST.com. And all you do is click on the webinar button, and you can sign up for it, or you can give our office a call at 866-395-1881. That's 866-395-1881.
Doctor, it's very interesting speaking with you, and we appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. And hopefully everyone will check out that webinar. It is important to know where we're coming from and have our bases intact At any rate, that is it for tonight's InfoWars Nightly News. We'll be back again next week.